Simcha. And we know mitzvah gdolah li'ot b'simcha tamid. We always have to be b'simcha. And we always have to la'avod Hashem b'simcha, to do avodat Hashem b'simcha. But what is simcha? So you might say joy, happiness, gladness. These are all words that we would associate with simcha. Now in English, we have synonyms. We have lots of synonyms in English because English is a composite of all sorts of languages. So you can say pretty, beautiful, and it really does mean the same thing. But Lashon HaKodesh Hebrew, not modern Israeli, but Hebrew Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue, is holy because it's the language in which the world was created. It's the building blocks of creation. And there are no such thing as synonyms in Hebrew. Every word means something distinctly different. So we have a pasuk in the Megillah, Layudim hayta ora b'simcha sason bikor. So simcha and sason are two different things, two different words meaning two different things. And you know, in the chasana, when you go to a wedding, the Sheva Brachot, there's a lot of words in simcha, right? There's Ashabara, Sason, Besimcha, Gila, Rena, Tetzaveh, Chedba. Every single word is distinct and means something different. So what is Simcha and what is Sason? So first of all, why is Simcha so important? We know that the nefesh, the soul, enlivens the body. The body is kept alive for the soul is brought to life by the soul keeps the body alive. And the highest, we know that the soul has different levels. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama, each one, in English you have one word, soul. But Hebrew, being Lashon HaKodesh, has many words for soul. And each one, like we said, there are no synonyms. Each level is a different level of the soul. It's enlivening you in a different way, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. There's levels of the soul that aren't even enclosed in the body, that are encompassing. So oneg, delight, is the highest level. And when a person is enjoying, he's more alive, he's more energetic. So why do we need to serve Hashem b'simcha? Because delight, simcha, the joyful feelings, make you more animated, make you do more, make you do better. And not only that, but in Tanya it talks about the battle between the good inclination and the less so, the evil inclination. And the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, the Shner Zalman Miliadi, compares it to a wrestling between two people. You watch people wrestling. He says that it's not so important which one is stronger. It matters which one is more joyful and more animated. And he's going to win, no matter who's stronger. Yes. Okay, so we know that we have the Samachta B'Chagecha. Simcha is Yom Tov. So how is Simcha defined in Yom Tov? And Simcha B'Basar B'Yayin. It has an external expression. We drink good food, we dress up nicely. It's very external in a sense. Simcha is something that's actually external. And we learned this also. So it's external and it has external expression. You're all excited, you might be smiling, laughing, etc. It's external. That's simcha. Sason, we have also sason, right? Simcha v'sason. So what sason is more internal. Sason is delight, happiness, a positive feeling from keeping mitzvot. We learn from David HaMelech. There's a pasuk in Tehillim, Sason uchi al imratecha, that I have sason from Hashem's word, from the mitzvot. It says in the Gemara that one time David HaMelech went to the bathhouse, and he started feeling like I don't have any mitzvahs here. I can't say any holy words. I can't sing Hashem's praises. I can't give staka here. I mean, I don't have any mitzvahs. And then he remembered that he has a brit milah. And that's why he says, I have a brit milah with me. I have a mitzvah to hold onto that brings me sason. Sason is something internal from delight from having and keeping Hashem's mitzvot. Now bring another expression of gila. What is gila? There's a pasuk, gilu bir'ada, that you have joy and trembling together. So gil is something that comes from approaching a big tzaddik or having a momentous moment of some kind. So you have two feelings together. You're being in delight and yet you're fearful. And that combination is gila. And that's the Gilu Birada is something associated with Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we have a new year. We're all excited. It's a time of good resolutions. It's starting a new chapter, a new page. And yet we're in the presence of the king. Melech Melchei Amlachim, we're crowning the king. And that makes Gilu Birada. Going through a couple quickly. Ocarina, my name, is the delight that comes after a crisis. Hashem tells Bnei Israel after the Churban, Roni v'simchi bat Zion. He uses the expression of Rena. That after the mashper, it's a different. Each one of these words is a little different. It's a little different feeling of joy, a little different feeling of happiness. So again, simcha is external, sason is internal from mitzvot. Gila is with trembling from the occasion. Rena is after a crisis. Renana is similar. That's when it's mixed with gaguim. How do you say longing? A delight that's mixed with longing. Like the example was brought of two friends that haven't seen each other for a long time. They're going to be crying and laughing together. They're crying because of the longing, and they're laughing because of the delight. And the two together is Renana. And Chedva, we see from Yitro, that when Yitro came to Har Sinai, Vayichad Yitro. What's Chedva? It's something intellectual. It's not in your heart, it's in your mind. An intellectual delight is Chedva. And then we have also in the Megillah, Vayir Shushan Hala B'Samecha. They were joyful that the decree was released, and Sahala is things that you do when you're excited, when you're very happy. You're yelling, you're shouting, you're dancing. That's Sahala. Oh, excuse me, Disa is laughing and is jumping, and Disa is jumping and dancing, and Salah is shouting from delight is Salah. That they felt relieved and they were shouting from joy. Thank you. And we should all be zocha to be makayim, being more the simcha.
Amen.
Hey.
Yes, that's what we need. I have a
Yes, no one has.
Hey. The story from the Vilna going exactly on this topic.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. Somebody spit on it. And that's to stay away.
Simcha. Simcha. That's why we talk about dancing and singing and yeah.
What's the source for this?
It's Rebbe from Toras Menachem, and
Okay.
I actually found a summary online. I did not read the sit inside. I did not find it.
Okay. Just stay there. All right. So we've been talking
And
about
I'm sure it's faithful without.
right. Name. All right. We've been talking about the mitzvah of not hating your brother. Lo tisna. Lo sisna. Okay.
Please keep that word in.
Okay, but he doesn't, so.
Oh, really?
And we've gotten to the point where we're talking about hate because, you know, we talk about hate.
Talk about love. Talk about
This is not my favorite part, but anyways, if you remember last week, we spoke about this, he brings us Gemara. It talks about what to do if you see two people, one person has a donkey and he needs help loading this donkey, and another person has a donkey and it's kind of collapsing under the load and he needs it to be unloaded. The only catch is, so who would you help first? So normally you would think you would help the person who's unloading the donkey, because you have an Indian of Tsar Balakayim. But what do you do if the person who normally you would help first, right? You can't do both at the same time. What do you do if the person you normally would help first is the person you hate? Right? I hate the guy who's loading his. So even though I have a halachic reason to unload the donkey, help this person unload the donkey, but the answer is that you're really supposed to help the person who you hate, right? And it speaks about like bending your Yetzer Hara. This is like one of these tests where, you know, I think I mentioned this last week, like somebody comes to borrow something and he said no. And you went to borrow something and he said no, and then he comes the next week to borrow something and you happily, with Simcha in your heart, give him exactly what he needs. That moment, it is a test. It's like controlling your fingers too, and just, you know, putting out of your mind how you felt the last time. Well, this is that situation too, where you have hate is a strong feeling, right? So you sort of put that out of your head. But then actually the question is asked, what exactly is this? Like, what kind of sina, what kind of hatred towards this person is this talking about? Right? We made the distinction that there are people who you are required to hate, people who are rishayim, and people who purposely, you know, cause another Jew harm, or somebody who purposely, you know, in front of everybody, you know, the guy who, drives through Bnei Brak on his motorcycle on Yom Kippur, you know, like this is a Russia, right? This is not a good person.
It's intent. Yeah, in this generation, I don't think we have such categories.
It's a recent book, but it still exists. But I spoke about it even back in the 1910s. They had to deal with this question, like how do you deal with I spoke about it with all the people who went to work on Shabbos, because there was no work for them if they didn't work on Shabbos, right? If you didn't go in on Saturday, don't come in on Monday. But they still do exist, and it affects our thinking to some degree. So you have these people who halachically you're required to hate. No, there really are people. There really are who have done something. Someone who who's the head of a yeshiva and entices women to. This person is a Russia who should be hated. Or is this talking about somebody who you had a fight with your neighbor? Right? Is this, you know, so there are actually different opinions that about how exactly you have to do this. And the conclusion it comes to is you still have to give preference to the soneh, even if it's somebody, the person who you have to give preference to the person you hate, even if it's somebody who you might halachically be required to hate.
So this person, right? We would still have to
in that particular situation, right? You don't have to be best friends with him. You don't have to include him in a minyan. You don't have to do other things, but a person who's in need, then there are opinions that you would help that person. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. No, it actually says and many other instances where kindness is required. Okay, so okay, so even with somebody who you are halakhically required to despise, So it says you're still really supposed to use your Yetzer Tov and restrain your bad feelings towards them. And here's some reasons why. Okay, so you hate the Russia specifically because of certain aveiros that they did. If that person also did something else to antagonize you, like just sort of a normal annoying person, you would not, you can't like bring in your other feelings of, you have to keep your hate focused on the aveira that he did, not other things that he may have done that you might find objectionable. Okay. Another explanation is that you purely despise the aveira. Like you've heard this expression, hate the sin, not the sinner. Well, it comes from Brachos 10. And it's the case where Rabbi Meir's wife, Ruria, tells him there were some people who were bothering him, and she convinced him to daven for these people to be better, rather than, hating them and hating everything about them. But so you have to separate a person and their actions. So another thing is that it's so even though there's this view to hate the Russia, it's limited to cases that are violations of mitzvos bein adam lamakom, right? It's limited to situations. It's not that they weren't nice to you. You're supposed to hate this person because they did a Hala Hashem, or because they denied God's authority, or whatever it might be. And then the other thing is that you do, if somebody just simply failed to do something, someone says, I'm not wearing tzitzis, I don't care, it's uncomfortable, I'm not going to wear tzitzis, and I don't want to, you don't hate that person. You don't hate a person for not doing a positive mitzvah. You hate a person for doing a negative mitzvah. Okay, so all of these things seem to, they're kind of directed, or at least the last few are certainly directed in one area, and that is if somebody feels that their father is being hated or disrespected, right? It like brings a whole different level of anger or antagonism towards that person, right? Like me, okay, so I'll, you want to do bad things, but my father, my God, my kadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbonu Shel Olam, you're insulting Hashem, and that's a whole different level of anger. And in that, so it's a challenge really to prevent that sina from spilling over. So that's about it for today.
Judy, I would like to talk about the feeling. So, of faith and I think the feeling a very bad for us. The person that was there. Because for us, giving empty and feeling faith is bad for me. The best way to do it for my understanding, we just cancel this person. This person doesn't exist. That's it. You don't need to put it in a feeling of faith in it. Somehow, even project somebody else or the feeling of anger. For my understanding, we have before to eliminate the feeling of anger before. Not afraid of feeling. Work to eliminate the way to command us how to do it. For example, from my experience, you have envy with somebody. And sometimes if I imagine in my image how I live when I was saying, it's a hard. So for how I work with it, I just imagine situation, keep it alone, and imagine the situation, and say, look how I would deal with it now. And I found the way how if you work on it every day, they will eliminate the feeling of them. And this is like what says that 100% true. But if you eliminate this person that cancels, believe. Not doesn't that's it.
Okay. I mean, the halacha might say that you should make some effort to try and make things right with that person. But if it's not possible, then that is a way.
But it does not explain what faith is,
Doesn't explain what?
It doesn't explain halacha what does it mean, the feeling of faith. It's misstated that's in general term, but stated would be to eliminate the concept.
Well, that's what I just went through, the different kinds of hatred. Okay. It's a good way, Leah. It's a good way. It's a good way. Yeah, one of the reasons that like you actually are permitted to hate a non-Jew, and one of the reasons why we don't, you can do other not nice things to non-Jews. One of the reasons why we don't, besides that it might make them angry and want to kill us, but because it warps you. You're changed. Hating somebody makes you, it's hard to like, okay, I hate you and it stops here. And then there's no bad feelings that spill over and affect anybody else. I mean, the same way that people who are in love, they're in love. They love everybody. So, emotions aren't easily contained. Dina. Yeah.
No problem.
You speak a little louder, Dina. I don't
What about if somebody who's been put in the era?
Right. Right. She said, what about somebody who has been put in chayrim? I mean, that's what I mentioned earlier, that people who you are commanded to hate. All right. Somebody who has done something that's, somebody who publicly, he says yes. He said there are opinions that yes, you are obligated to help them.
You're not supposed to have contact with them, then how do you?
Karen was kind of a what?
Yeah. You're right.
All right. I mean, when having somebody be someone that you're commanded to hate, it's a little tricky these days. It's not the same thing, like somebody is driving down the street, on Shabbos, do you throw a stone at them? No, this is not. Invite them to Hala. But according to many opinions in the halacha, you would hate that person.
But what if this generation as a person who's going to the hospital? You don't know it. On the other side of town.
Okay.
So how?
Okay. All 15 cars that go by my house, all.
Some of them aren't Jewish.
Some of them aren't Jewish.
When he got there, said they're all going to have a baby, all of them.
Okay.
He wasn't.
I'm just giving you an example of something that's a very public possible avera. And according to some opinions, you would be obligated to hate that person. Do we? Some people do, but do we normally? I don't think that's the derech in our times. I don't think that there's much point in it. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't change anything. So, yes.
There's a story from Rabbi Brisby, who's the rabbi of Dvar Torah in California. And he sees this moving truck across the street, and it says Jewish moving, and it's Shabbat.
Oh.
Okay, there's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So Chabad always looks at the positive, and he said, "Oh, people for Shabbat, they go over and they say, come, let's have a drink or something." They don't say it's Shabbat, and you can't.
Right. Have some kids. Let's have big
So
kiddush.
they have, and they spend the whole day with them, and they see, and then the guy who's moving in comes, and it's he says that he wanted to have a place where he could feel comfortable, and that it was a community that would be good for him. Okay, so after Shabbat, they all go and they all move everything in. So fast forward, and all of a sudden, Rabbi Brisky wants to do the candle lighting for Hanukkah, and for some reason he picks this place. So he calls up and he says, "We want to reserve it." And the woman says, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yes." And she says, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yes." And then he finds out when they're there that everything was closing in that place. It was going under. So it turns out one person is there. And who is it? The guy that was moving in from way before. And then he makes this whole thing with him for lighting the candles and dancing with him. And then he forgets about it, but this is the guy who moved in. And then he comes over and he tells him that he lost a child. And he was divorced and he wanted to start a new life again. And then he goes on and he tells him, and they take him in. And all of a sudden, you see him laying tefillin, everything. So that's, to me, the positive way of
Yeah.
what we do now.
That's what we do now. That's what we do now.
I think it's very important, like a child that goes off the derech. You have to just love them.
Right. Listen, it's been something of a hard issue all of our, all of our history. When people, at the time of the maskilim, what did you do?
Right.
When there were people who were just like abandoning Yiddishkeit, what did you do? So, there were people like Shimshon Raphael Hirsch who tried to argue. There were people who tried to argue the case for Yiddishkeit. There were people who just banned any contact with those people. There were people, I didn't tell this story, but I will tell this story that there was a maskil who came to the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon's like quizzing him, right? Now the Vilna Gaon, there's no such things as synonyms in Torah, in Hebrew, right? Every word has its own distinct meaning, like Rena said. So he's talking to the guy, what is this? What does Rena mean? What does Ditza mean? What does this mean? What is that? And then he says, Simcha, no, that's the same thing as something else. And the Vilna Gaon basically had the guy tied up, and he put him on the porch, and it put a sign on it, spit on this maskil, and everybody who came in and walked in, spit on the guy. Wow. Okay, that's what they did in those years. That's needed. Okay, that's right. But what might be needed for, in one community there might be something else that's needed in another community, right? Like you have the story of this, anyways, whatever. I won't keep going on.
Did it work? Did he do
it's not recorded.
That's not it's fine. The generation at a point where they need warn again.
Okay. Did you just hear what Rena said? She said, go ahead, say it louder. It was at a time when the generation needed to be warned against such people, and he needed to make a public spectacle about what people were doing, and maybe I'm adding how distorted their thinking would be. So I mean, each time requires a different thing. Okay, let me just get to some announcements. Okay, so first of all, there are a few teachers who won't be here today. Doba is not teaching, and Shulamit Tillis is not teaching. Everybody else, I think, will be here with us. Okay. Then also Yudita is giving the 5th part of her 6th part. She's talking about Purim, and yeah, that's a good topic. We love Purim. Okay, so that's at 12:30. Okay, just want to mention that it's the beginning of the month, so if you want to pay your monthly dues, forgot the box, it goes into the blue one. Okay, we have a new, what? We do not pay rent for this place, no. Thank you. We have this. This is not for the Chayalim. That's for the Chayalim. If you want to contribute every week, we support. We try and support as much as we can the food that's cooked by Yehudas Hoffman and her many helpers, and providing meals for 200, 300, 400, 500 soldiers every week. So whatever you can do. This is our new box for this is leftover from our wonderful event, so we could just continue to remember. This is made by Bina. Isn't it beautiful? Anyways, so we're collecting money for this is Matanas Levionim. This is gifts to the poor. This money will get to the person, to the people before Purim or on Purim. We'll make sure. This is particularly designated for one family, which they're really struggling. It's a level of poverty. It's a level of not being able to pay rent, having, a family that it's insecure whether they'll be able to continue living where they're living. And so whatever you can do to help them would be very much appreciated.
By thinking about this, knuckles right now, I would not say
Okay, just one second.
We say everything that does, whether that be money, whether that be stuff, whether that be food, or even just.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is dues. The other box, the blue box is for the soldiers, and this is Matamis Levioni.
And then it's already been people.
1 second. Let me just finish.
Hi, everybody. Good
Oh, I didn't
morning.
finish.
Good morning. Let's breathe. Thank Hashem for our ability to do that. Anyway, we are doing today our fourth, but maybe not last, part of our Death Cafe series of actors, which I know people don't like it, but you'll have to get the attention. The idea is that it's a segula of a long life. We talked about the legal aspect of what kind of help you can get. You can help you get help, and you can help yourself through various legal techniques. Okay, so we did that last time. We have little summaries that you can consult for that part of it. And today, I think Kaya and I will going to talk about interesting things like hospice. Great stuff. But you know something?
Okay, great stuff. Okay, important to know.
It's 2:00 at the English-speaking English language library, okay?
Oh, that's
2:00.
Okay.
All right, come to it.
Okay. I just also want to mention we're honored today. We have 2 birthday girls. This is Nechama. If you didn't get a chance to celebrate her, this is a moment to celebrate her. Birthday, 8 years. And our birthday girl puts her in her back pocket because she's Leah, 80.
Oh, no.
Don't say it.
Numbers do not work.
She's had many wonderful years on this earth. So happy birthday to
Sammy.
Wait, like Leah, I would think at a certain point you wouldn't worry about getting old. You'd sort of like, oh, pretty good. So it's all about your relatives. I know it's true. Okay, did you want to?
Yes.
All right.
May I just add a couple of words about soldiers? I missed my spot. I was privileged to spend the Shabbat Friday evening with 32 Hayalot. They are, how do you say singles?